Abhajita. All right, we're almost there. Here we go. Okay, first I guess I should show a video. Give me 1 second. Today's been a real crazy day. And we should show a video of Champaka dancing. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. Hopefully, whoops, I can't show it with that app. Okay, it ain't gonna work. Okay, anyway, so much for that. Okay, so let's chant Jai Radha Madhava tonight. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Malaba Girivaro Ahuti Gopi Jana Malaba Girivaro Ahuti Yashodanandana Mrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Mrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Paradhari Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Paradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Sata Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Ram Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavanam ki jai, Maturadam ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Yamunamai ki jai, Shrimati Lasudevi ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvati Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Tejatarni. So Om Gana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurveda Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, just getting my mobile network set up in case we have to use my phone to go on the internet. Okay, so we're going to continue reading from the Caitanya Caritamrta. We're on the Adi Lila, chapter 2, coming upon text 20. All right, I think we have everything set up. Okay. And so text 20 is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Hold on a second. Clear the screen. Atavavahudaitena kim yatena tabarjuna vistabhyaham idham kritsnam ekam shena stito jagat. So Krishna states, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna said, what more shall I say to you? I live through this cosmic manifestation merely by my single plenary portion. It's a little bit different than translation probably gave from the Bhagavad Gita, but it's pretty much the same thing. Of course, this is after Prabhupada, after Krishna talks about all of his opulences, like of aquatics and the shark, etc., like this. And then he says, but what's the use of all this information? Because with a single fragment of my potency, I'm maintaining everything. So, in the purport here, Prabhupada says, describing his own potencies to Arjuna, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna spoke this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, 10:42. Text 21. Tang imamahamajam sharirabhajam redi dishtitam atmakalpitanam patidrashamiva naikadarkamekam samadhi gatosmi vidutavedamoha. Grandfather Bhishma said, as the one sun appears differently situated in different seers, two different seers, so also do you, the unborn, appear differently represented as the Paramatma in every living being. But when a seer knows himself to be one of your own servitors, no longer does he maintain such duality, Thus I am now able to comprehend your eternal forms, knowing well the Paramatma to be only your plenary portion. So it's a very interesting verse. So, in other words, Krishna appears differently to different people according to how they approach him. That's really what he's saying. And then now he understands, Grandfather Bhishma understands the Paramatma is one of Krishna's plenary expansions. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 9th chapter, text 42, was spoken by Bhishma Deva, the grandfather of the Kurus, when he was lying on a bed of arrows at the last stage of his life. Arjuna, Krishna, and numberless friends, admirers, relatives, and sages had gathered on the scene as Maharaj Yudhishthira took moral and religious instructions from the dying Bhishma. Just as the final moment arrived for him, Bhishma spoke this verse while looking at Lord Krishna. Just as the one sun is the object of vision of many different persons, so the one partial representation of Lord Krishna, who lives in the heart of every living entity as the Paramatma, is a variously perceived object. One who comes intimately in touch with Lord Krishna by engaging in his eternal service sees the Supersoul as the localized, partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhishma knew the Supersoul to be a partial expansion of Lord Krishna, whom he understood to be the supreme unborn transcendental form. Text 22. Seta Govinda Sakshat Chaitanya Goshai Jiva Nishtharite Ache Dayalu Aranai. That Govinda personally appears as Chaitanya Goshai. No other Lord is as merciful in delivering the fallen souls. So, purport. Having described Govinda in terms of his Brahman and Paramatma features, now the author of Sri Caitanya Caritamrta advances his argument to prove that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the identical personality. The same Lord Sri Krishna in the garb of a devotee of Sri Krishna descended to this mortal world to reclaim the fallen human beings who had misunderstood the personality of Godhead even after the explanation of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, directly instructed that the Supreme is a person, that the impersonal Brahman is his glowing effulgence, and that the Paramatma is his partial representation. All men were therefore advised to follow the path of Sri Krishna, leaving aside all mundane isms. Offenders misunderstood this instruction, however, because of their poor fund of knowledge. Thus, out of his causeless, unlimited mercy, Sri Krishna came again as Sri Chaitanya Goshai. The author of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta most emphatically stresses that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna himself. He is not an expansion of the Prakash or Vilas forms of Sri Krishna. He is the Swayam Rupa. Swayam Rupa means the original form, Govinda. Apart from the relevant scriptural evidence forward by Srila Krishnadas Goswami, Kaviraj Goswami, there are innumerable other scriptural statements regarding Lord Chaitanya as being the Supreme Lord himself. The following examples may be cited. Now, these are very important because this establishes, or these quotes establish, that Lord Krishna is the same as Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is the same as Lord Krishna. So very, very important points. So, number one, from the Caitanya Upanishad, Gora Sarvatma Mahapurusho Mahatma Mahayogi Tri Gunatita Sarvarupo Bhaktim Loke Kashati. Lord Gora, who is the all-pervading Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears as a great saint and powerful mystic who is above the three modes of nature and is the emblem of transcendental activity. He disseminates the cult of devotion throughout this world. And then from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, 6, 7, and 3.12. Tam Ishvaranam Paramam Maheshwaram Tam Devatanam Paramam Jadaivatam Patim Patinam Paramam Parastad Idamadevam Bhuvaneshamidyam. O Supreme Lord, you are the Supreme Maheshvara, the worshipable deity of all the demigods and the Supreme Lord of all lords. You are the controller of all controllers, the personality of Godhead, the Lord of everything worshipable. And then, Mahan Prabhurvai Purusha Satvashyayasha Pravartakaha Sunirmalam Imam Praptim Ishano Jyotirha Vyayaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Mahaprabhu, who disseminates transcendental enlightenment. Just to be in touch with him is to be in contact with the indestructible Brahmajyoti. From the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.3, Yada Pascha Pashyate Rukma Varnam Kartaramisham Purusham Brahma Yonim. One who sees that golden-colored personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Actor, who is the source of the Supreme Brahman, is liberated. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 5th chapter, texts 33 to 34, and 7th Canto, 9th chapter, text 38. Jayam sada paribhava jnanam abhishtadoham tirthashparam shiva varanchinutam sharanyam pratyartiham pranatapala bhavad vivotam vande mahapurusha te charanarvindam. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of him, the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He destroys insults to his devotees. He removes the distresses of his devotees and satisfies their desires. He, the abode of all holy places and the shelter of all sages, is worshipable by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. He is the boat of the demigods for crossing the ocean of birth and death. Then from the 11th canto, Hyoktva sudushjaja surepshita raja lakshming Dharmishtarya vachasa yadagararanyam mayamrgam dayata yipsitam anvadhavad vande mahapurusha te charanarvindam. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his household life, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls who were put into illusion by material energy. That's Lord Caitanya, of course. Prahlad Maharaj said, it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam again, Itam ritiryagrashi deva jashavatarar lokan vivayasi hamsa jagatpati pratipan dharmam mahapurusha pasi yuganuvritam chanakalo yad abhavastri yugotas satvam. O Lord, you kill all the enemies of the world in your multifarious incarnations in the families of men, animals, demigods, rishis, aquatics, and so on. Thus you illuminate the worlds with transcendental knowledge. In the age of Kali, O Mahapurusha, you sometimes appear in a covered incarnation. Therefore, you are Sri Yuga, that is one who appears in only 3 yugas. So this is important. Actually, there's another word in this particular verse that's important too, which is chana. That means hidden. Hidden avatar in Kalo, in Kali. And even though he's generally called Sri Yuga, in Kali Yuga he appears in a covered form. In the Krishna Yamala Tantra, Punya Kshetra Navadvipe Bhavishyami Sachi Sutaha. I shall appear in the holy land of Navadvipa as the son of Sachi Devi. From the Vayu Purana, Kalo Sankirtan Arambe Bhavishyami Sachi Sutaha. In the age of Kali, when the Sankirtan movement is inaugurated, I shall descend as the son of Sachi Devi. And from the Brahma Yamala Tantra, Athavaham duradame bhutva mad bhakti rupadrik Vayayam cha bhavishyami kalo sankirtanagame. Sometimes I personally appear on the surface of the world in the garb of a devotee. Specifically, I appear as the son of Sachi in Kali Yuga to start the Sankirtan movement. So the reason all these quotes are given is, as Srila Prabhupada stated, that if someone is to be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, an incarnation of the Lord, or an avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there must be some scriptural reference. In addition to showing the qualities, in addition to being in disciplic succession, and many other different prerequisites. From the Ananta Samhita, Yaeva Bhagavan Krishna Iradika Prana Balaba Srishyado Sa Jagannatho Gorasin Maheshwari. The Supreme Person, Sri Krishna himself, who is the life of Srimati Radharani and is the Lord of the universe in creation, maintenance, and annihilation, appears as Gora, O Maheshwari. All right. Paravyom Mekte Vaishe Narayana Nam Sadhaishvarya Purna Lakshmi Kanta Bhagavan. Lord Narayan, who dominates the transcendental world, is full in six opulences. He is the personality of Godhead, the Lord of the Goddess of Fortune. Veda Bhagavata Upanishad Agama Purna Tattva Yanreta Kahe Nahi Anrasam. The personality of Godhead is he who is described as the absolute whole in the Vedas, Bhagavatam, Upanishads, and other transcendental literatures. No one is equal to him. There are innumerable authoritative statements in the Vedas regarding the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. Some of them are as follows. From the Rig Samhita 1.22.20, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashanti Surya Diviva Chakshur Hatatam. Now this is actually a very, very important verse. And it starts really with Om, as all verses in the Rig Veda start with. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashanti Surya. What that means is really interesting. It means that all the demigods, they are looking to Krishna. And here Prabhupada translates. From the personality of Godhead, Vishnu is the absolute truth, whose lotus feet all the demigods are always eager to see. Like the sun god, he provides everything by the rays of his energy. He appears impersonal to imperfect eyes. Now the reason that verse is so important that many people in India, at least so-called intellectuals, they will argue with you and say, where is Vishnu or Krishna in the original Vedic literature? Original to them means like the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. And then we just pull out this verse. Om Tad Vishnu Param Padam Sara Pashanti Surya. That all the demigods, they're worshipping Vishnu. Because it's very hard to find Vishnu in the Rig Veda or Samaveda or Yajurveda, Atharva Veda, because most of these literatures are filled with either hymns to demigods or how to say those hymns to demigods or karma kanja stuff. Karma kanja means Vedic injunctions to help you become elevated materially and ultimately to go to Swarga, the heavenly planets. And Krishna even states that in the Gita, that the most of the Vedic literatures are actually dealing with the three modes of nature rather than being transcendental. He says, Trigunya Vishya Veda, Nis Trigunya Pavarjana, Nir Dwandwo Nityaya Satvashto, Nir Yogic Shema Atmavan. He says to Arjuna that the Vedas are mainly meant for dealing with the three modes of material nature, but you, O Arjuna, should rise above these things and be transcendental. Now, why do the Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of nature? Because most of everybody's in the three modes of nature, and they need to be gradually elevated so they can ultimately take Krishna consciousness. Of course, in Kali Yuga, there is no time to gradually elevate people. Therefore, you find different sacrifices forbidden in Kali Yuga. and you find different fire sacrifices or different yajnas impossible to perform because there's no Brahmins expert enough to perform them. So in Kali Yuga, there's only one Dharma which gets you immediately to the transcendental platform. Ekon Dharma, that is Krishna Nam Sankirtan. So remember that. So, too, from the Narayana Tarva Shira Upanishad, 1 to 2, Narayana Deva Samutpadyante Narayanat Pravartante Narayane Praliyante Atha Nityo Narayanaha Narayana hi Vedam Sarvam Yadbhutam Yatschavavyam Shuddha Deva Eko Narayana Nadvitiyo Sti Kaschit. It is from Narayana only that everything is generated, by him only that everything is maintained, and in him only that everything is annihilated. Therefore, Narayana is eternally existing. Everything that exists now or will be created in the future is nothing but Narayana, who is the unadulterated deity. There is only Narayana and nothing else. From the Narayana Upanishad 1.4, Yata Prasuta Jagata Prasuti. Narayana is the source from whom all the universes emanate. From the Haya Shir Shah Pancharatra, Paramatma Harir Devaha. Hari is the Supreme Lord. From Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 34th to 35th verse. Narayana Vidya Vidanasya Brahmana Paramatmanaha Nishtamart Arhata No Vaktum Yuyam Hi Brahma Vittamaha. O best of the Brahmanas, please tell us of the position of Narayana, who is also known as Brahman and Paramatma. Here's the answer. Stit Yud Bhava Pralaya Hitur Hiturasya Yat Swakna Jagara Shushuptishu Sadvahischa Dehendriyarsu Vidayani Charantihena Sanjivitani Tad Avehi Param Narendra. O king, know him, who is causeless and yet is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He exists in the 3 states of consciousness, namely waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, as well as beyond them. He enlivens the body, the senses, the breath of life, the heart, and thus they move. Know him to be supreme. So, again, Bengali. Bhakti Yogi Bhaktapaya Yanhara Darshan Surya Yena Savigraha Deke Devagan. Through their service, devotees see that personality of Godhead, just as the denizens of heaven see the personality of the sun. So, purport, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has its eternal form which cannot be seen by material eyes or mental speculation. Only by transcendental devotional service can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. The comparison is made here to the qualifications for viewing the personal features of the sun god. The sun god is a person who, although not visible to our eyes, is seen from the higher planets by the demigods, whose eyes are suitable for seeing through the glaring sunshine that surrounds him. Every planet has its own atmosphere according to the influence of the arrangement of material nature. It is therefore necessary to have a particular type of bodily construction to reach a particular planet. The inhabitants of Earth may be able to reach the moon, but the inhabitants of heaven can reach even the fiery sphere called the sun. What is impossible for man on earth is easy for the demigods in heaven because of their different bodies. Similarly, to see the Supreme Lord, one must have the spiritual eyes of devotional service. The personality of Godhead is unapproachable by those who are habituated to speculation about the absolute truth in terms of experimental scientific thought without reference to the transcendental vibration. The ascending approach to the absolute truth ends in the realization of impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma, but not the supreme transcendental personality. So, see if I can unpack a little bit of that for you. So, Takshri Krishna Namadi Nabhavek Brahmendriya. We can't perceive Krishna for several reasons. Actually, two basic reasons. Naham prakashta sarvasya yogamaya samavrita. That Krishna says, I'm not revealed to the rascals. In other words, Krishna is God. He can choose whether someone can see him or not see him. That's his independence. That's one reason. Another reason is that Krishna's transcendental form is transcendental. And our eyes are only capable of seeing some of the aspects of the Pancha Mahabhuta. What is Pancha Mahabhuta? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. The five gross elements. And some of these we can't even see. You could see earth, sure. Water, yeah, you can see water. Air, you can see fire, right? Yeah, sure, you can see fire. Air, no, not really. You can't even see air. Unless there's smoke in the air, but then you're not seeing the air, you're just seeing the particles, which are earth particles in the air, or water particles in the air, or sparks, fire in the air. So you can't even see air. It's amazing. And what to speak of ether? Ether basically means space. So you can't even see space. I mean, you can be aware of space. You could say, my hand is like 2 feet away from my face. That's the space in between, but I'm not really seeing the space. I'm indirectly understanding there must be space because there's some distance between my head and my hand. So what to speak of even the subtler material elements? Mind. Has anyone seen a mind in this world? Not really. I'm not talking about the brain. Intelligence. Hardly anyone has intelligence. What to speak of seeing intelligence? And then finally, ego or false ego. Can't see the ego. So there's far more in this world than we can possibly perceive, especially the spiritual elements. And even subtle material elements like electricity, you can't really perceive. You can't see electricity. Of course, you feel it if you get a shock. Or electromagnetic waves that are in the air, like the Wi-Fi that we're using now that hopefully stays on throughout the class. So you really can't see Krishna if you don't have the right instruments to see. You understand? Just like, all right, let's take a type of, let's say, light. Let's talk about infrared light. Can you see infrared light? No. Unless you actually have, let's say on your camera, some sort of infrared sensor, then using the proper procedure, the proper mechanism, you may be able to see infrared light or ultraviolet light. So even there's light rays that you can't see. But you can see them if you have the proper instrument to perceive them. Or even the sound vibration. You can hear up to about 20,000 hertz. If you don't know what that means, it means 20,000 cycles per second. And you can't hear more than that unless you're a highly unusual person. But dogs can hear higher than that because they have the right instruments. So when we become Krishna conscious, we develop the right instruments, spiritual instruments, for perceiving the Lord. And, the second reason, then Krishna desires to reveal himself to us. Because as I said, in the first explanation, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita, that Krishna says, I'm covered by my eternal deluding potency. So these muda, these fools, they can't see me. Just like you would not like to be seen by someone who doesn't like you or someone who's unfavorable towards you. But you don't have the eternal, that is you don't have that eternal deluding potency just to cover someone so you can be invisible. But Krishna has it. So this is really important. So anyway, so that's why the scientists, they'll never be able to see the soul. They'll never be able to see super soul. They can speculate, or if someone becomes some sort of great yogi, they can actually understand the impersonal Brahman, the all-pervading energy of the Lord, or if they're really lucky, they can understand the localized Paramatma. But they will never, never in a million years understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. So, Jnana Yoga Marge Tanre Bhajaye Sab Brahmatma Rupe Tanre Kare Anubhav. Those who walk the paths of knowledge in yoga worship only Him, for it is Him they perceive as the impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. So those who are Naham Prakasha Sarvasha, covered by Krishna's deluding potency, the Yoga Maya, sometimes called Mahamaya, they cannot see Krishna. Those who are fond of mental speculations, jnana, marg means path, or want, and jnana means knowledge, or want to meditate in mystic yoga to find the absolute truth, must approach the impersonal effulgence of the Lord and His partial representation, respectively. Such persons cannot realize the eternal form of the Lord. And both of these realizations are really deficient in many ways. Of course, the personal effulgence or the effulgence realization is really deficient. As one great Acharya, Prabhupada Saraswati, said, Kaivalya, not a kayate. It is actually like hell, because you lose all sense of identity, all ability to engage in any sort of interactions, personal association with anyone. It is hell. So, text 27. Upasana Vede Jani Ishvara Mahima Ataiva Surya Tanra Diyeta Upama. Thus one may understand the glories of the Lord through different modes of worship, as the example of the sun illustrates. Say Narayana Krishnara Swarupa Abed Ekaye Vigraha Kintu Akara Vibed. Narayana and Sri Krishna are the same personality of Godhead, but although they are identical, their bodily features are different. In Hotad Vibhuja Tino Dare Chari Hat Inho Venu Dare Tinho Chakradika Sat. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, has 2 hands and holds a flute, whereas the other Narayana has 4 hands with conch, wheel, mace, and lotus. So Narayana is identical to Sri Krishna. They are in fact the same person manifested differently, like a high court judge who is differently situated in his office and at home. As Narayana, the Lord, is manifested with 4 hands, but as Krishna, He is manifested with 2 hands. So that's a standard explanation that Prabhupada gives, how all the Vishnu Tattva forms of the Lord are exactly the same and the same person, but just different manifestations of the same person. Advaita Chuta Anadir Ananturupa Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. In other words, the example Prabhupada is giving here is that when one goes to the court, if he's a high court judge, he dresses a certain way. He has different names. He's called Your Honor or Your Holiness or whatever they call high court judges nowadays. And yes, it's really interesting. When I've been in a court for various reasons, when the high court judge walks into the room, everyone rises. So His Honor so-and-so Rascal is sitting in this court. Now everyone may be seated. So everyone has to rise and sit. So the interesting thing is when he goes home and he walks in the house, it's not that his wife has to rise or even greet him. She may greet him. But there's no formality. And he's the same person, dressed differently, maybe even combing his hair. Actually, it's interesting. The high court judge in certain countries has to wear a wig. It's interesting in Fiji, for example, where I have some disciples, that even the lawyers or advocates or whatever they call them, the councils, they call them councils, sorry, they have to wear wigs. And this white wig they wear, it's such a hot climate. And even if someone happens to be a woman lawyer or a woman counsel, they have to wear this wig, and it looks really stupid. So they wear the wig when they're in court, and at home they don't wear the wig. They just like let their hair down, so to speak. So when Krishna is manifesting himself as Narayan, it's a very official type of relationship people have with him. He's the creator and the manifester of all the worlds. And when he manifests himself in his original form, Ete Chanksa Kalaktam Sam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, he sort of lets his hair down and everything's really relaxed. He has friends and they're playing and they're wrestling. Nobody ever wrestles with Narayan. Hope not. Except the demons, they may try, but then they get killed. But the friends certainly don't wrestle with Narayan. But the friends wrestle with Krishna. Krishna does so many things, so tricky, he runs out in the middle of the night. That's the difference, but it's the same person in different situations, acting differently according to time, place, and circumstance. Text 30. Narayanas tvam nagi sarva dehinam admasyadi shakila loka sakshi Narayanongam narabhujalayanat tachapi satyamna tavaiva maya. O Lord of Lords, you are the seer of all creation. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. Are you not therefore my father Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water born from Nara, Garbhodaksha, Vishnu. And that Narayana is your plenary portion. All your plenary portions are transcendental, they are absolute, and not creations of Maya. This is a statement by Lord Brahma, actually. This statement is, which is from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, 14th chapter, text 14, was spoken by Lord Brahma in his prayers to Lord Krishna after the Lord had defeated him by displaying his mystic powers. Brahma had tried to test Lord Krishna to see if he were really the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Playing as a coward boy, Brahma stole all the other boys and calves from the pasturing grounds. But when he returned to the pastures, he saw that all the boys and calves were still there, for Lord Krishna had created them all again. When Brahma saw this mystic power of Lord Krishna's, he admitted defeat and offered prayers to the Lord, addressing him as the proprietor and seer of everything in the creation, and as the super soul who is within each and every living entity and is dear to all. That Lord Krishna is Narayana, the father of Brahma, because Lord Krishna's plenary expansion, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, after placing himself in the Garbha ocean, created Brahma from his own body. Mahavishnu in the causal ocean and Shiradaksha Vishnu, the super soul in everyone's heart, are also transcendental expansions of the supreme truth. And we've talked about this before. The Purusha avatars is the Mahavishnu. Breathes out, all the universes come out. He glances at all the universes. That glance is called Shambhu. And within that glance are all the living entities who were previously in a state of suspended animation, entering into each and every of the universes that's expanding, like little bubbles expanding. And then he, that is the Mahavishnu, expands himself as the Garbhodaksha Vishnu and lays down in the Garbhodak ocean. And from his navel comes Lord Brahma, the first created being in the universe. And then the Lord expands himself further as Shiradaksha Vishnu to be present in everyone's heart and in every atom. And people wonder where the energy of the atom is coming from. The energy, the subatomic energy, where is it all coming from? How's that energy there? That energy comes from Krishna. And because Krishna is the energetic. Shishu Vatsya Hari Brahma Kari Aparad. Aparada Shamaite Mangena Prasad. After Brahma had offended Krishna, by stealing his playmates and calves, he begged the Lord's pardon for his offensive act and prayed for the Lord's mercy. Tomara Navi Padma Haite Amara Janmodai. Tumi Pita Mata Ami Tomara Tanai. I took birth from the lotus that grew from your navel. Thus, you are both my father and mother, and I am your son. In other words, Lord Narayan did not need a wife. The Garbhodakshay Vishnu did not need a wife. He could do everything by himself. Pita mata balakera nalaya aparad. Aparada kshama more karaha prasad. Parents never take seriously the offenses of their children. I therefore beg your pardon and ask for your benediction. Krishna kahena Brahma tumara pita narayan. Ami gopa tumi khache amara nandan. Shri Krishna said, "Oh, Brahma, your father is Narayan. I am but a coward boy. How can you be my son?" Brahma was realizing the non-difference between Krishna and Narayan. And one way he realized it was because when Krishna expanded himself as all the coward boys and calves, those expansions, although they first appeared as the original coward boys and calves, then appeared as four-handed Narayan forms. Brahma balena tumi kina hoye Narayan. Tumi Narayana shuna tahara karan. Brahma replied, "Are you not Narayan? You are certainly Narayan. Please listen as I state the proofs. Prakrita ra kuta shrishcheyata jiva roop taharaye atma tumi mula swarup." All living beings within the material and spiritual worlds are ultimately born of you, for you are the super soul of them all. So Prabhupada's purport: the cosmic manifestation is generated by the interaction of the three modes of material nature. The transcendental world has no such material modes, although it is nevertheless full of spiritual variegatedness. In that spiritual world, there are also innumerable living entities who are eternally liberated souls engaged in the transcendental loving service to Lord Krishna. The conditioned souls who remain within the material cosmic creation are subjected to the threefold miseries and pangs of material nature. They exist in different species of life because they are eternally averse to the transcendental loving devotion of the Supreme Lord. You hear that? It's about us. Eternally averse. Sankarshan is the original source of all living entities because they are all expansions of his marginal potency. Some of them are conditioned by material nature, whereas others are under the protection of the spiritual nature. The material nature is a conditional manifestation of spiritual nature, just as smoke is a conditional stage of fire. Smoke is dependent on fire, but in a blazing fire there is no place for smoke. Smoke disturbs, but fire serves. That's interesting. The serving spirit of the residents of the transcendental world is displayed in 5 varieties of relationships. The rasas, with the Supreme Lord, who is the central enjoyer. In the material world, everyone is a self-centered enjoyer of mundane happiness and distress. One considers himself the Lord of everything and tries to enjoy the illusory energy, but he is not successful because he is not independent. He is but a minute particle of the energy of Lord Sankarshan. All living beings exist under the control of the Supreme Lord, who is therefore called Narayan. Okay, so we are going to end now and take questions. Okay, tomorrow we'll continue with text 37. Okay, give me a second. Looks like the internet cooperated today. All glories to the internet. Okay, who wants to ask a question? You are free to unmute yourselves and ask questions. Anyone?
Good Dave.
Wow.
Question here.
Okay.
How can Lord Caitanya not be called a Vilas form when his form is different than Lord Krishna? The Vilas means that the form is different.
Yeah, that's right.
So Lord
It's
Chaitanya
not.
doesn't.
It's only different. It's only different to your vision. Well, it's only different because he turns golden because he is meditating. It's exactly the same as Krishna, but he's meditating on Srimati Radharani, and then he assumes the golden color. I mean, it's just the color is, yeah, you could say in one sense different because the color is different, but it's this, he's the same because he's the same Krishna. It's not like an expansion of Krishna. He's not Balaram, he's not Sankarshan, he's not Prajuna or Aniruddha. He's the same Krishna. And he just looks different. I mean, let's say, trying to give an example of Krishna's pastimes. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's like when Krishna dresses up as a woman or something like that in his pastimes. You know, it's the same Krishna, he just puts on different clothes. And so the same thing with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's not, it's not different in any sense of the word. He's just in a different frame of consciousness. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I could always say a chincha. That's always a good way to answer all these things. It's a chincha. It's inconceivable. But yes, it's the same. He is the same Krishna. He's non-different from Krishna. He just has a soft heart because he's in the mood of Radharani, and the color is golden. Yeah, actually, we have a comment here. There are places in the stories where Krishna, actually in Krishna, where Krishna turns golden even when he's in Vrindavan because he's meditating on Radharani. There was a nice comment. Where are all my comments? Oh, chat. Yeah, places. There's many stories actually where Krishna is like that. And actually, there's one story where Lord Chaitanya turns black. Does everybody know that story? That's the story when he assumes the karma from Jagai and Madai. And devotees look at him and he says, what do I look like? And they say, you look like Krishna. And then everyone starts chanting. And when they start chanting, he resumes his original color. So, anyway, a chincha. So, thank you for that comment. So, who else has a question?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Dandavat
Oh,
Pranam.
Hare Krishna, by Caitanya. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you. Please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj,
So,
just a question on the, when you were talking about Vishnu and Krishna, and it's all quite clear when from the Vedas, when you're listening to those comments around Om Tad Vishnu Param Padam, and Vishnu is the supreme personality of Godhead.
right.
But the Mayavadis often, and they pride themselves on the Vedas. Where do they go wrong then? How can they not see that?
The way they go wrong is that they interpret indirectly the statements of the Vedas. According to the Vedic rules for interpretation, if something makes sense by the direct understanding, you accept that, and if something doesn't make sense by the direct understanding, then you accept an indirect understanding. So, the typical example Prabhupada would utilize in this particular context was Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Where Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, etc., etc., etc. And so Dr. Radha Krishna, who used to be the president of India many years ago, before he became incarnated in Sweden, but I'm not going to tell you how. Dr. Radhakrishna, in his commentary, because he was a Pukka Mayavadi, he said it's not to the person Krishna we should surrender, but to the impersonal, unborn, beginningless within Krishna. And this is an indirect interpretation. And Prabhupada would often say something like, if I ask you to bring me milk or bring me water, do you think it's just, he doesn't mean what he's saying, he just bring water or milk to the impersonal within himself. So when Krishna uses the personal pronoun mam, like mame kam sharanam braja, that's another verse, then one should take it in the direct way. I mean, it really takes a lot of speculation, inventive thought, or hypothetical thought to take that statement as meaning anything else other than referring to a person. But they do that. So that's really the point. And that's the point with Shankaracharya, who is actually the head of all the Mayavadis. And he was given that task to bewilder people, to bring people back to the Vedic literatures, where he indirectly interprets the philosophy presented in the Vedas to come up with his conclusions. So it's a matter of interpretation.
Right.
Direct interpretation or indirect interpretation. When one reads the Gita, it's very easy to understand. Shankaracharya also accepted the Bhagavad Gita. He even wrote treatises on the Bhagavad Gita, appreciations of the Bhagavad Gita. But he did not accept the direct meaning of the Bhagavad Gita in many, many verses where Krishna is very specific about his individuality, his personality, avajananti mam mudha. For example, where Krishna says, anyone who decries my form and personality is a jackass, basically. So, anyway, so that's the reason. Because people have their own philosophy, and they use the Vedic literatures to propagate or to justify their philosophy by taking an indirect interpretation. Yeah. Prabhupada said, at one point he said, it's all right that they have their own philosophy, but they shouldn't use Bhagavad Gita as a vehicle to present their philosophy. And that's also why Prabhupada termed his Bhagavad Gita as it is, which means Bhagavad Gita as Krishna spoke it, not Bhagavad Gita as someone wishes it was or is or whatever. So that's why.
Makes sense. Thank you, Maharaj.
So that's why it's quite easy for a devotee who's well versed in the Shastras to defeat the Mayavadis based upon the Shastras. And you see, the Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu did that when he met with Prakashananda Saraswati in Benares. He actually soundly defeated them on the basis of the Vedanta Sutras. And he also defeated Shankaracharya's interpretation of the Vedanta Sutras, the Sarirakya Vashyas. So, and also Lord Caitanya defeated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was also acting as an impersonalist. Philosophically, just on the basis of one verse in the Bhagavatam, which is called the Atmarama verse. So it's quite easy, in addition to utilizing verses from the Vedic literatures to disprove the Mayavad philosophies, one can even use logic and reason and show how there's many logical fallacies in the Mayavadi's interpretations. For example, you have this whole theory of illusion that one of the theories the Mayavadis put forward is that we are all Brahman or all God, that somehow or other we've been put into illusion, which is kind of funny because that means that illusion is stronger than God. That's the fallacy in that particular argument. So even let's even forgetting about the Vedic literatures, it's easy to deal with Mayavadi arguments if one knows a little bit about logical principles. Okay?
Yep. Many thanks, Maharaj. Very, very well
Okay.
explained. Thank you.
Yeah, but most people, let's say, Hindus, they like to be so-called impersonalists. I mean, they don't really even know what impersonalism is, because it means that they don't have to surrender to any god. You know, it's actually a lot easier to have many gods, and you don't have to surrender to any of them or do what anybody wants. You just like offer to different gods at different times of the year to get what you want from them. It's a lot easier than dealing with Krishna, who keeps demanding. Krishna keeps demanding absolute surrender. You know, nobody, and people just don't like that. They're just like, it's really hard to deal with. Why not? Why not just worship many gods? Isn't it a lot easier? It's a lot easier and it's more practical than worshiping Krishna. I'm just joking. Because you don't have to surrender. Krishna, you have to surrender. You have to give your heart to Krishna. You have to worship him. Manmana bhakavad bhakto. I mean, just like those that worship the demigods, they generally are not always thinking of them, worshiping them, offering their obeisances to them. They just go to the Hindu temple when, you know, they want something, or when it's a festival, when it's Diwali or something like that. They give each other a lot of sweets, and that's easy.
It's the order supplier relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the order supply relationship, and then you get to observe all these festivals and eat a lot of sweets. You know, Diwali's famous.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, it makes it more fun than surrendering. All right. Oh, who else has a question?
Hare Krishna Gurudev. This is Aditya Das.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Gurudev. Gurudev, so when Krishna expands in so many manifestations, like unlimited manifestations, so all these manifestations, are they independent controllers? Like they do their own activities? And is there any like situations where one expansion meets another expansion and exchanges?
Yes.
And
yeah, there's many stories about that. What Balaram meets Krishna?
yeah.
Prajuna and Niruddha, you have Mahavishnu, who made a trick to trick Arjuna and Krishna to leave this material world to go to see him.
So they are not independent controllers, right? Like they're still under the control of Krishna.
Well, they're all Krishna. They're all the same person. That's the funny thing. I mean, that's why we say it shouldn't use that term all the time. They're not you can't say they're independent, because they're all Krishna. It's all the same person acting differently simultaneously in infinite situations.
Okay.
Right? I mean, how is that conceivable? It's not. If you ask me to conceive of it, how I could be looking two different ways in two different situations simultaneously, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know, and that's just two different places. What to speak of Krishna is in infinite different places, looking differently in each and every place. Of course, Super Soul looks the same. But basically, you know, all these different incarnations as fish, incarnations as tortoise, and Prabhupada says every species of life, and it's all happening simultaneously. In some universe, there's always the fish incarnation. Another universe, there's always the tortoise incarnation, a Lord Nrsingadev incarnation. And it's all happening right now.
Okay, can we say, Gurudev, like all these incarnations are somehow or other giving pleasure to the Krishna in Vrindavan? You know, we may not see it, but inconceivably they are.
The incarnations are Krishna. You know, yes, you could say they're servants of Krishna, like Balaram is servant. Yeah, Yeah, you could. I mean, I guess you could make that argument. Like Balaram serves Krishna by being his Brahman thread, by being the Singasana, his throne, his seat. The paraphernalia, much of Krishna's paraphernalia is Balaram. Yeah, and Balaram's always serving Krishna. And I mean, you can also say that you have Ram and he has Bharat, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna, and they're all serving Ram.
Mm.
So yeah, you could say that, but they're all the same person. I mean, if you try to conceive of the inconceivable,
Mm.
it just really to use an expression from the 1960s, it blows your mind. You know, so I don't even try to conceive of it. I know it's true. I know God is inconceivable. I know God is unlimited. But exactly to define the relationship or to understand how each incarnation is feeling in relationship to who they actually are and, and to their original form, wow, that's beyond my pay grade. Whew, and even Krishna's glories are so amazing that it describes that Ananta Shesha's tried to understand and glorify with his unlimited heads, and he can't come to an end of glorification because each time Krishna tries to measure his own glories, they increase exponentially. I mean, they increase so much that he can't measure them. So that such is the nature of God. I think if we could actually understand, other than theoretically, what is going on, then Krishna wouldn't be God.
Mm.
If we can understand him. You know, how can
Yeah.
you understand Krishna? He's in everyone's heart. He understands what you're thinking, he understands what I'm thinking. I can't even conceive of that.
Actually, Krishna doesn't understand himself. He becomes Radharani.
That's right. That's right. Krishna doesn't even understand. Well, no, Krishna doesn't understand the love that Radharani has for him.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing he doesn't understand because Radharani's not a jiva soul. She doesn't have Lord Vishnu in the heart.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah.
That's why, yeah, because Radharani has Krishna in the heart, but, you know, whatever. I mean, it's so inconceivable. If you try to just analyze like we do with ordinary psychology or whatever, it's not going to work because Krishna's Krishna. I mean, he's just, it's just like, what does it mean to be Lord Matsya? I don't know. I would never was Lord Matsya. How would I know? You know, what's going on in Lord Matsya's mind or Lord Kurma's mind? Well, I know certain things going on in mine. You know, he's happy that they're scratching his back when the hill is on top. You know, he said, "Thank you for scratching my back." But I really, how can we understand the mind of the Absolute?
Mm.
All I know is that Krishna loves us, and we love him. We should love him,
Mm.
and all these incarnations are the same person, and that is amazing. If that doesn't, really throw you for a loop, understanding how each and every expansion of Krishna is non-different from Krishna, just manifesting himself differently, and it's all happening simultaneously. I can't even understand how Krishna can marry 16,108 wives.
Mm.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I'm not pretty amazing. That's an understatement. It's just like, I don't understand it. I accept it because he's God. But what does it mean that in each and every house he's doing something differently with each and every wife and all the little children running around? I mean, that's inconceivable.
So
I mean,
can we
that's
say
not it. What?
can we say like when Krishna in Vrindavan is experiencing some rasas, but he want to experience those rasas in a different way, and so that's how he incarnates in different form.
Yeah, I mean, whatever Krishna does, that actually is a fact. He does for pleasure, for experience. Like there's certain aspects of the ghastly rasa he's not going to experience in Braj. So the ghastly rasa, just like Krishna wants to have a fight, so he has his devotees Jai and Vijay come down to the material world so he can fight. Krishna doesn't have to come down to kill the demons. Prabhupada explains that very nicely. He says killing the demons can be done by Krishna's devotees or Krishna's energies. Krishna comes down to enjoy ras. So whatever he does to enjoy ras. I mean, just like even the story of the Tulsi Shalagram Vivaha, Krishna had his devotees come down so that he could experience different rasas, like Tulsi Devi getting angry with him and cursing him to become a stone. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's true. I mean, that's the reason for Krishna's various incarnations. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all Krishna's enjoyment. Because these things can be done by Krishna's energies. Krishna's energies are Prasya Shaktir Vadaiva Shriyate Svabhavaki Jnana Balakariyacha. Krishna's energies are perfectly capable and potent of doing anything that Krishna wants. Krishna's Aptakama. If he wants a demon dead, all he has to do is want it, and the demon dies. He doesn't have to come down and, dress up as a Kshatriya, to kill the demon. But he's enjoyer of ras. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. That's actually the motivation. Krishna is the enjoyer of ras. And enjoyer of compassion. Compassion is one of the rasas, the indirect rasas. That's why he comes down as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In addition to his own internal reasons for understanding Radharani's love for him and seeing himself from her perspective and experiencing the happiness that Radharani feels. Okay, good question. We have to end now because I do have a material body and I have things.
Yeah, thank you, Gurudev.
I do not have a spiritual body, at least not right now. Well, I have a spiritual body, but it's not here. I left
Hare
it
Krishna, Gurudev. Hare
Krishna,
Krishna. This is
I'm sorry, I have to end.
Hari Bol. It's Gurudev, just to let you know, please keep Rajendra in your prayers. He's back in the hospital.
Oh, okay,
So
I will pray.
please, Gurudev. Yeah.
All right, keep me informed.
Yes,
Okay.
I will, Gurudev. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.